Akpabio changed the Senate rules to lock Oshiomhole out of the race for Senate president. Oshiomhole went on national television and alleged that Akpabio's daughter got a job at the NNPC without merit, while Akpabio's Senate is trying to bury the investigation into 210 trillion naira of unaccounted for NNPC funds. Same party, same government, same week. The APC just opened a war inside itself that Nigeria needs to watch very carefully. At All Walks Life, we follow the power. We expose the truth because you deserve to know what they didn't report. To understand what is happening right now, you need to go back to May 6, 2026. The Nigerian Senate, after a closed-door session that lasted over 3 hours, amended its standing orders. The new rule said any senator who wants to contest for Senate President or Deputy Senate President must have served at least 8 consecutive years in the Senate. The amendment effectively blocked senators who are not in the 9th and current 10th Senate from contesting for leadership positions. Now, everybody in Abuja knew what this was really about. Up to 10 outgoing governors are positioning to enter the Senate in 2027 and contest for Senate President, and the amendment was designed to shut them out before they even arrived. But it also shut out one man who was already there, Adams Oshiomhole, Senator for Edo North, former APC National Chairman, former Edo State Governor, first-term Senator, and, by his own admission, a man with serious ambitions for the Senate presidency. Oshiomhole stood on the Senate floor and objected. Akpabio refused to recognize him. Oshiomhole kept talking. Akpabio threatened to have him removed by the sergeant-at-arms, warning, "If you become unruly, we will use the rules to take you out of the Senate." Oshiomhole fired back. He said Akpabio himself has not spent 8 years in the Senate, even combining his previous tenure with the current one, meaning under his own new rule, Akpabio should not be Senate President either. He called on Akpabio to resign and lead by example. Days later, under pressure, the Senate reversed the amendment. But the war did not end. It went underground. And then, June 11th, Oshiomhole sat before the Senate Public Accounts Committee investigating 210 trillion naira in unaccounted for NNPC funds. And when the former NNPC Chief Financial Officer tried to minimize the probe, Oshiomhole exploded. He told the committee, "NNPCCL has no reputation. Your reputation is for fraud." He called the whole institution a house of thieves. The Senate, led by Akpabio, distanced itself from Oshiomhole's comments the very next day. And then, on June 13th, Oshiomhole went on podcast and brought Akpabio's daughter into the story. Here is what Oshiomhole alleged on Seun Okinbaloye's Mic on Pod on June 13th. And we are framing this as his allegation because it has not been independently verified. He alleged that former NNPC CEO, Mele Kyari, employed Senate President Akpabio's daughter in a lucrative NNPC position, a position she probably did not merit, and that this is why Akpabio has a personal interest in protecting the NNPC from serious scrutiny. He said he is not against senators' children working in NNPC. He said the problem is when those children get positions without going through the proper process, without a merit-based interview, without due procedure. Then he went further. He said Akpabio thinks he is the devil. He said if Akpabio has his way, he would lock him out of the Senate entirely. Now sit with what is happening here. One APC senator is publicly alleging that the man presiding over the Nigerian Senate, the man whose chamber is supposed to be investigating 210 trillion naira in unaccounted for NNPC funds, has a personal financial stake in protecting the very institution being investigated. That is not a small accusation. That is a structural allegation. It is saying the investigation is compromised from the top, from inside the ruling party, by personal interest. And Akpabio has not addressed the specific allegation about his daughter. The silence, again, is doing its own talking.
Now step back and look at the full picture. The Senate is supposed to be investigating 210 trillion naira in unaccounted NNPC funds. The Senate's own committee issued an arrest warrant for former NNPC boss Mele Kyari after he ignored 9 invitations. The Senate then distanced itself from its own committee's language. Akpabio warned that calling NNPC corrupt could damage Nigeria's international business relationships. And now, the senator who called NNPC a house of thieves is publicly alleging that the Senate president's own daughter works there. Connect those dots yourself, because if Oshomole's allegation is true, even partially, then the Senate's reluctance to push this investigation to its conclusion is not about protecting Nigeria's international reputation. It is about protecting family. But here is the deeper consequence that nobody is talking about loud enough. This is not a fight between good and evil. This is a fight between two men on the same side, two APC senators, two loyalists of the same ruling party, using the most explosive ammunition available to destroy each other before 2027. Oshomole wants the Senate presidency. Akpabio wants to keep it or control who gets it. The Senate amendment was about that power struggle. The NNPC investigation has become another battlefield in that same war. And the 210 trillion naira, the money that belongs to Nigerians, that funded schools that were not built, roads that remain broken, hospitals with no drugs, that money is sitting in the middle of this personal power war as a weapon, not as a matter of justice, as leverage. That should make every Nigerian who is watching this furious. Here is what this story is really telling you about the APC going into 2027. The party that controls the presidency, the Senate, the House of Representatives, and the majority of state governments is eating itself from the inside. The Senate president and one of his most senior senators are now waging a public war involving personal allegations, procedural manipulation, corruption claims, and family names. They are on the same side, they wear the same party badge, they sit in the same chamber, and they are destroying each other. Now, some people will say this is good news for the opposition, that a divided APC benefits Peter Obi, benefits the NNDC, benefits anyone running against Tinubu in 2027. Maybe, but here is the twist that keeps this story uncomfortable. The NNPC investigation does not get resolved because Oshomole and Akpabio are fighting. The 210 trillion naira does not get accounted for because two powerful men are using it as ammunition against each other. If anything, the more personal this war becomes, the less likely any serious outcome is. Because a serious outcome requires every person in that chamber to agree that accountability matters more than their own position. And right now, nobody in that chamber is making that argument. Oshomole is fighting for the Senate presidency. Akpabio is fighting to stay there. The money is caught in between. So ask yourself this. When APC senators are this busy fighting each other, who exactly is fighting for Nigeria? Because the 210 trillion naira did not disappear by accident, and it will not come back through a podcast interview. At All Walks Life, we follow the power, we expose the truth, because you deserve to know what they didn't report.